To unlock why two individuals of the same age, sharing identical diets, experience radically different health outcomes in their 80s, ignore their genetics entirely, forget their medication lists, and look deeper at whether they are activating or suppressing their body's internal stem cell network every single morning. There is a specific way to prepare your morning coffee, a method taking less than 2 minutes that can reawaken dormant stem cells sitting idle in your bone marrow and simultaneously cut off the blood supply to microscopic cancer clusters before they ever become a threat. Most people are drinking their coffee in a way that strips out the very compounds responsible for these effects before the cup even reaches their lips. By the end of this video, you are going to know exactly how to fix that. Most people believe that coffee is either good for you or bad for you, depending on which headline they read last. After nearly 30 years studying cancer biology, cellular regeneration, and the relationship between everyday compounds and human longevity, I can tell you that framing misses the entire point. Plain coffee prepared the conventional way gives you perhaps 20% of its potential. What I am going to show you today is how to unlock the other 80%. It is the part that talks directly to your stem cells, your immune surveillance system, and your body's natural cancer containment mechanisms. I am an emergency medicine physician and cancer researcher. After nearly 30 years watching patients navigate disease, some thriving against expectations while others declined in ways that felt preventable, I became obsessed with one question: what were the people beating the odds actually doing differently? The answer was not expensive. It was not exotic. It was not locked behind a prescription. In many cases, it was sitting on their kitchen counter every morning. But the preparation method made all the difference. Today I want to share what the research shows. Not speculation, not opinion, but measurable, peer-reviewed biology about how your morning cup can become one of the most powerful cellular tools in your daily life. In this video, I am going to walk you through the specific coffee preparation method that maximizes its stem cell activating compounds by a significant margin, and why most people are unknowingly destroying those compounds before they finish brewing. We will examine 4 distinct biological pathways through which properly prepared coffee reawakens dormant stem cells and suppresses the blood vessel formation that allows cancer clusters to grow. I will provide exact research with subject counts, durations, and measurement tools from Harvard, the Karolinska Institute, the NIH, and the University of California. You will learn a specific morning protocol, what to add, how much, in what order, and why each ingredient matters. We will also identify the single most common coffee mistake that cuts protective compound absorption by nearly 30%, and the simple swap that fixes it instantly. I need a little favor. I see messages and comments from people who have watched several of my videos and did not realize they were not following. Could you double check right now? It is free, takes 2 seconds, and it helps this information reach more people like you who want real science-based health information. Consider what stem cells actually do and why they stop doing it. Picture your body's tissues as a city's infrastructure: roads, water mains, electrical lines, and buildings. Over time, things crack, corrode, and wear down. The city does not just accept this. It has a maintenance department, specialized crews sitting in depots across the city on standby, waiting to be dispatched the moment a repair call comes in. Your stem cells are those maintenance crews. They live in your bone marrow, your fat tissue, the walls of your blood vessels, and your gut lining. When tissue is damaged or worn, whether from normal aging, inflammation, or cellular stress, chemical signals go out and stem cells mobilize, travel through the bloodstream, and begin repair work. Here is what happens as we age. The crews do not disappear, the depots do not close, but the communication system degrades. Chronic low-grade inflammation creates so much background noise that the specific repair signals get lost in it. Stem cells that were once mobilized by the dozens now barely stir, and the body's capacity for self-renewal, which is essentially what we experience as vitality, recovery speed, and resilience, begins to quietly diminish. The research tells us something remarkable though. This is not irreversible. The mobilization signal can be restored, and specific compounds found in your morning beverage, when prepared correctly, are among the most potent natural tools we have identified for doing exactly that. Now let me tell you something about cancer that does not get discussed enough outside of oncology circles. Every human body at any given time is likely harboring small clusters of abnormal cells, cells that have accumulated DNA copying errors and are no longer functioning normally. In most people, most of the time, these clusters never amount to anything. Why not? Because a microscopic cancer cluster cannot grow larger than the tip of a ballpoint pen without recruiting its own dedicated blood supply. Think of that cluster like a tiny campfire isolated in the middle of a stone circle. Without fuel and oxygen being continuously fed to it, it cannot spread. It just smolders. For a cancer cluster to grow, to escape that ballpoint pen size and become something dangerous, it has to send out chemical signals that trigger the formation of new blood vessels leading directly to it. This process is called angiogenesis. Once those vessels connect, the growth dynamic changes catastrophically. Research has shown that a connected tumor can expand more than 16,000 times its original size within a matter of weeks. Your body has its own natural angiogenesis suppression systems. Think of them as a municipal zoning authority that reviews and rejects applications for unauthorized construction. When those systems are functioning well, the abnormal clusters stay contained. When chronic inflammation, poor nutrition, and specific dietary choices compromise those systems, unauthorized construction proceeds. Here is where your morning cup enters the picture, not as a folk remedy, but as a biologically precise tool for keeping your body's containment systems operational. Mechanism 1 is the chlorogenic acid cascade for stem cell mobilization. Coffee is one of the richest dietary sources of chlorogenic acids, a family of polyphenols that interact directly with receptors on bone marrow stem cells. When chlorogenic acids enter your bloodstream, they send a mobilization signal that essentially tells resting stem cells the repair window is open and it is time to circulate. Think of it like a PA system in a large building that has been set to near mute for years. The workers, your stem cells, are still there. They simply have not been receiving the call at sufficient volume. Chlorogenic acids turn the volume back up. Here is the critical nuance. Lightly roasted coffee contains up to 60% more chlorogenic acid than dark roast. The roasting process that creates bold, bitter flavor also oxidizes these compounds. Every degree of additional roasting you apply to a bean is a degree of cellular signaling you are burning off before the coffee ever reaches you. Mechanism 2 involves VEGF modulation to cut off the cancer blood supply. Vascular endothelial growth factor, or VEGF, is the primary molecular signal your body uses to authorize the construction of new blood vessels. In healthy tissue, this is essential. After injury, VEGF tells your body where to build new capillaries to feed the repair process. In cancer biology, this same signal gets hijacked. Abnormal cell clusters send out VEGF signals to draw blood vessels toward themselves. Coffee's polyphenol compounds, particularly caffeic acid and its metabolites, have been shown to act as a modulator on VEGF activity, essentially functioning as a dimmer switch rather than an off switch. They do not eliminate angiogenesis, which would be dangerous. They tune it down in environments where it should not be happening. This is why epidemiological research consistently finds that habitual coffee drinkers show measurably lower rates of hormone-sensitive and digestive tract cancers. The consistent daily exposure to these compounds maintains a baseline level of VEGF suppression in environments where it matters most. Mechanism 3 is the NF-kappa B pathway, downregulation, silencing the chronic inflammation signal. NF-kappa B is a protein complex that functions as a master control switch for your body's inflammatory response. In acute situations, an infection, a wound, or a physical threat, NF-kappa B activation is exactly what you want. It coordinates the immune system's response. It is your body's emergency broadcast system. The problem arrives when that emergency broadcast never shuts off. Chronic NF-kappa B activation, triggered by poor diet, sleep disruption, environmental toxins, and psychological stress, creates a permissive biological environment for abnormal cell growth. It is analogous to a building's fire alarm that has been ringing continuously for so long that the occupants stop responding to it. The real emergencies get ignored. Coffee's caffeic acid and chlorogenic acid derivatives have been demonstrated in multiple studies to interrupt chronic NF-kappa B signaling, bringing low-grade systemic inflammation down to ranges where your immune surveillance cells can actually function at capacity. Mechanism 4 is mitophagy induction, your cell's internal quality control system. This is the mechanism that surprised me most when I first encountered the research. The combination of coffee's polyphenol matrix has been shown to stimulate mitophagy, a cellular housekeeping process in which cells identify and disassemble their own damaged internal components, particularly defective mitochondria, before those components create further dysfunction. Think of mitophagy as the self-cleaning cycle on an industrial oven. Without it, residue accumulates, efficiency drops, and eventually the system fails or misfires. With it running regularly, the internal environment stays clean and functional. For stem cells specifically, mitophagy is critical. Stem cells that accumulate internal damage over time either go dormant, contributing to the mobilization problem, or become dysfunctional, generating low-quality repair cells rather than healthy tissue. By keeping the mitophagy process active, a well-prepared morning coffee helps maintain not just the quantity, but the quality of your circulating stem cell pool. Study 1, from the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, tracked 51,529 male health professionals over 18 years. Men who consume 6 or more cups of coffee daily showed a 60% reduction in lethal cancer progression compared to those drinking 1 cup or fewer. The protective effect was most pronounced in participants consuming light or medium roast, not dark roast. The researchers specifically attributed this gap to chlorogenic acid content, which dark roasting measurably depletes. Study 2, from the Karolinska Institute, Sweden, followed 61,000 women over a decade. Women consuming 4 or more cups of coffee per day showed a 25% reduction in a specific hormone-sensitive cancer compared to low consumers. Mechanistic analysis pointed to sustained modulation of circulating growth factors and measurably lower systemic VEGF activity. The authors noted that this was not a caffeine effect. It tracked with total polyphenol load, not stimulant dose. Study 3, the NIH AARP Diet and Health Study, tracked 402,260 participants between the ages of 50 and 71 for 13 years. Each additional daily cup of coffee consumed was associated with a 6% reduction in all-cause mortality. Critically, the same relationship held for decaffeinated coffee, demonstrating that the protective mechanism resides in the polyphenol matrix, not the caffeine. This was not a subjective health improvement. It was a measurable survival difference tracked across a population of over 400,000 people. Study 4, from the University of California, involved 44 adults with early-stage mild cognitive impairment, given a standardized coffee polyphenol extract daily for 16 weeks. At the end of the trial, circulating bone marrow-derived stem cells had increased by an average of 34% compared to the placebo group. Measured using flow cytometry, the gold standard laboratory method for quantifying circulating stem cell populations, secondary measures showed improved endothelial function and significant reductions in inflammatory cytokine levels. This was quantifiable biological change. Here is exactly what I recommend. 1. Choose light or medium roast only. This is non-negotiable for the mechanisms we discussed. Dark roast degrades chlorogenic acid significantly. Look for beans labeled light or medium roast. The flavor will be slightly more acidic and less bitter. That bitterness you associate with strong coffee is largely the taste of oxidized polyphenols. 2. Brew at 195 degrees Fahrenheit. Not boiling. Water above 212 degrees begins degrading the polyphenol structure. If you use a standard drip machine, it likely hits this range already. French press with a 4-minute steep at this temperature produces excellent compound extraction. If you pour over or use a kettle, let boiling water rest for 90 seconds before contact with grounds. 3. Add half a teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon, not cassia cinnamon, which is what most grocery stores sell as generic cinnamon, but Ceylon, sometimes labeled true cinnamon. Ceylon contains cinnamaldehyde and proanthocyanidins that work synergistically with coffee's chlorogenic acids to amplify stem cell receptor signaling. 4. Add a quarter teaspoon of lion's mane mushroom powder. Lion's mane contains hericenones and erinacines, compounds with independent evidence for stimulating nerve growth factor and amplifying bone marrow stem cell mobilization. When combined with coffee's polyphenol base, researchers describe what they call additive synergy on stem cell receptor sensitivity. 5. Add a small pinch of ground black pepper, roughly 1/16 of a teaspoon. Black pepper's active compound, piperine, increases the bioavailability of polyphenol compounds by up to 20% by slowing their intestinal transit and improving absorption at the cellular level. At this quantity, you will not taste it. 6. Use no dairy milk or cream. Dairy proteins, specifically casein fractions, bind to polyphenols in the gut and significantly reduce their absorption before they reach the bloodstream. Studies measuring plasma polyphenol levels after coffee consumption with and without dairy have shown absorption reductions of 25 to 30%. Unsweetened oat milk or coconut milk does not carry this binding problem. 7. Drink within 30 minutes of waking before eating. Fasting state consumption allows coffee's compounds to enter the bloodstream without competing with glucose-mediated signaling pathways. Circadian rhythm research suggests that stem cell receptor sensitivity is highest in the morning fasting window. 8. Follow immediately with 8 ounces of water. Coffee has a mild diuretic effect. Even slight dehydration reduces circulatory efficiency, which limits how effectively mobilized stem cells can travel through the bloodstream to reach repair sites. The water is not optional. It is a functional component of the protocol. Pro tip 1. Layer coffee timing with morning exercise. If you exercise in the mornings, consume your prepared coffee 45 to 60 minutes before your session. Exercise independently triggers stem cell mobilization through a pathway involving insulin-like growth factor. When you layer the signals, the combined biological effect is substantially greater than either produces alone. Pro tip 2. Avoid sugar, including natural sweeteners. Even small amounts of sugar trigger an insulin response that directly interferes with chlorogenic acid's metabolic signaling. Pro tip 3. Rotate your coffee origin every 3 to 4 weeks. Different growing regions produce beans with distinct polyphenol profiles. Ethiopian varieties tend to be exceptionally high in cafestol, while Colombian and Central American varieties often run higher in chlorogenic acid density. Pro tip 4. Grind immediately before brewing. Polyphenols in coffee begin oxidizing the moment the bean is cracked. Freshly ground beans have measurably higher active compound content. Pro tip 5. Consistency over volume. 3 cups prepared correctly consumed daily over weeks outperform 6 cups consumed sporadically. The biological changes we are discussing operate on timescales of 8 to 16 weeks. The variable that separates people who see change is whether they show up every morning. Mistake 1. Assuming dark roast richer flavor means greater potency. The roasting process that produces bold flavor oxidizes chlorogenic acids, the primary stem cell signaling compounds. Switching to a light or medium roast is the single highest leverage change in this entire protocol. Mistake 2. Adding dairy and assuming the rest of the protocol compensates. It does not. Casein polyphenol binding is a chemical interaction. You can do everything else correctly and still reduce your absorption by nearly 30% by finishing with a splash of milk. Mistake 3. Expecting noticeable changes within the first week. Biology doesn't work on that timeline. Stem cell mobilization and inflammatory recalibration are cumulative processes measured over 8 to 16 weeks in the clinical literature. Mistake 4. Substituting green coffee bean supplements for the whole beverage. Coffee's biological activity comes from a complex interaction among multiple compounds operating in ratios that no current supplement replicates. You are not outsmarting the research by taking a pill. You are removing yourself from it. The whole beverage prepared correctly is the solution. Aging is not a sentence. It is not a predetermined biological slide toward decline that you are simply obligated to observe. The patients I have watched age with remarkable resilience well into their 80s are not genetically exceptional people. They have consistently built habits that keep their cellular maintenance systems running, their stem cells circulating, their immune surveillance active, and their inflammatory environment inhospitable to abnormal growth. These systems are biological mechanisms that exist in you right now in their entirety, waiting for the right signals. Your stem cells are in their depots. Your angiogenesis suppression systems are in place. Your immune surveillance cells are standing by. The question is whether your daily habits are sending the signals that keep those systems engaged. Your morning cup, prepared correctly, can be one of those daily signals. It takes 2 minutes and starts tomorrow. Let me bring it all together. Your body maintains a network of stem cells responsible for continuous tissue repair and regeneration. Aging reduces the signals that mobilize these cells, but that process is reversible through targeted dietary inputs. A microscopic cancer cluster cannot grow beyond the tip of a ballpoint pen without forming its own blood supply. Coffee prepared correctly activates 4 distinct biological pathways: chlorogenic acid-driven stem cell mobilization, VEGF modulation for cancer angiogenesis suppression, NF-kappa B, downregulation for chronic inflammation control, and mitophagy induction for cellular quality maintenance. Harvard research tracking over 51,000 participants showed up to a 60% reduction in lethal cancer progression in consistent coffee consumers. The Karolinska Institute found a 25% lower cancer risk over 10 years in women consuming 4 or more cups daily. The NIH-ARP study of over 400,000 people showed that each additional daily cup correlated with a 6% reduction in all-cause mortality. an effect that held equally for decaffeinated coffee. A University of California trial measured a 34% increase in circulating bone marrow-derived stem cells after 16 weeks of polyphenol-enriched coffee consumption. The morning protocol, light or medium roast brewed at 195 to 205 degrees Fahrenheit, with half a teaspoon Ceylon cinnamon, a quarter teaspoon lion's mane powder, a pinch of black pepper, no dairy milk, consumed within 30 minutes of waking before food, followed by 8 ounces of water. The single most impactful change is to switch from dark roast to light or medium. The single most common error is adding dairy milk. Results operate on an 8 to 16 week biological timeline. Consistency, not intensity, is the variable that determines the outcome. Your health is not predetermined by your genes or your age. It is shaped enormously by the signals you choose to send your biology each morning. You have far more control than you have been led to believe. If this information gave you something real to work with, share this with someone who needs it. Check out my previous videos where I break down which foods have been clinically shown to activate all three of your body's natural cancer defense systems simultaneously: immune surveillance, angiogenesis control, and inflammation management. Learn how to combine them with this morning protocol for compounded effect. I will see you in the next one.